My name is Mike Mularkey. I wanted to thank all the people that worked behind the scenes to put this together today. Some of them were commissioned to do the work. I wouldn't say they were had to do the work, but they were commissioned to do the work, which means it's different if you're commissioned rather than, I doubt if they would call it work. So it all started in Genesis 2:18. It's not good that man can be alone. I will make him a helper as his partner. God knew we would need partners to get through our lives. Some people are created to work with people. Think about all the nurses and doctors and counselors and all the gyms and the nightingales that do good work for people, that bring about salvation and healing. Others work with things. I'm not going to talk about the nurses and the doctors. I'm going to talk about the things. In Genesis 2:15, the Lord then took man and settled him in the garden to cultivate and care for it. Well, it started, God had 6 days to create the world. Imagine how much he accomplished in 6 days. Think about how much has been accomplished when that 6th day ended until now. All the inventions and things that have happened since then. Like Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Was it really him? No. He took credit for it. But you all know who did it. My occupation was solidified when I was a young child. I had to fill out a form one day of what my father's occupation was. So I asked him what it was, and he said, "I'm a merchant." I said, "Okay." I didn't know what that meant, but that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. That's a person involved in wholesale trade, buying and selling. Aha, I'm going to be a merchant. As I reflect back over the years, I felt like I was just a big lump of clay. We're all just a big lump of clay. And someone's been spinning that wheel all these years and forming us. I can remember I grew up in a family business, working in our warehouse. And thinking about all the things that were accomplished and how they were accomplished. So I thought, what can I do for you today? So you see the picture of the fella here, Roger. He worked for my grandfather, my father, and me. He would work all day singing and praising Jesus all through the years working in our warehouse. We had a Christian named Cat Rabbit and Shade and many others. And I didn't realize it, but I grew up in a Christian workplace. Our business flourished in the 70s and 80s. And then as time went on, we became aware of a disease that my father had. and he was alcoholic. So he went to the Mayo Clinic because he was a severe diabetic and found out that he'd been killing himself. He came home and said, "What a fool I am. I've been all these years." And he quit drinking. So that disease, I think all people have some kind of disease or struggle. But in his case, he came to know that he had to quit. And when he did, it took him into severe depression. And it ended in him taking his life. So when that happened, you know, the business, it crumbled. The walls fell down. My mother sold it. And then I was in charge of running it for the next 8 or 10 years. So that was like my time in the desert when I saw what had happened. The Christian business was now for profit, for money. The work was all about the struggle of working and earning and making money. That's what was important to me. Living paycheck to paycheck, spending more than we earned, and struggling. So then one day they came, and the company we sold it to, they came and locked the doors and sent everyone home. And I started over in a new business, same building. And my brother Andy came in and helped me. And every day he came as I started, and he said, "What can I do for you today?" Every day he helped me rebuild and rebuild. We had opened a retail store and then continued the business. So we went from $6 million in sales to zero, and I started over again at zero in 1997. As I was preparing for this, I was pondering about work and discipling in the workplace. So I'm thinking, okay, where's your workplace? Well, our workplace is everywhere. We can disciple when we're working in the yard, working with neighbors. What about when we're working out, Stephen? Can we disciple there? We're always working on something. So why not make a lifestyle of living and walking out your faith? Many times I've looked or prayed for opportunities to do this with the fear of being uncomfortable or awkward. But then later, I see that maybe I missed an opportunity, and I felt guilt and shame for not speaking up or speaking out, and regretting and saying I should have said something. I could have said something. So let's build something together. So here's a picture of my crew doing some work. So I'll tell you what our mission is. From the classroom to the playground, Ladders assist the learning process by providing creative products to assist the mental and physical capabilities of all children. Our passion is fueled by the opportunity to employ individuals in our community working in the process of recovery. Well, it's my joy to see the healing and transformation of those people that have come through my business. When I interview them, I ask them about their job skills, their history, their past. Do you have a felony? Check. Have you been on drugs? Check. you need to work or do you want a job? There's a story of a fellow named John Smith who went to work for the railroad. And after about 30 years, he worked his way through and he became the CEO. At a train wreck, he was on the tracks, and Jim Bob saw him and said, "Hey, John, how you been?" "Good." And one of his coworkers says, "How do you know him?" Well, he said, "We started to work the same day." "Really?" And John Smith said, "Well, how is it that you're still working on the railroad for $18 an hour and I'm CEO?" And he said, "Well, he went to work for $18 an hour and I went to work for the railroad. Big difference." So these people that have come to me are really on their way, usually somewhere else. If I can be a ladder for them to step up and work and then move on, I'm happy the day they come and say, "I got a better job." I want to wish them well. But in the meantime, the small groups and the time that we spend together, we make it fun. They love to build. They feel a sense of accomplishment when they're done. They'll come to me and say, "Look what we did." They see the kids playing on the playgrounds, and they feel that sense of accomplishment. They're rebuilding their lives. They're that lump of clay that needs spinned. They need someone to help push the pedal and spin the clay so that they can continue on. So they have this guilt and shame as they come through. But I believe in second chances and forgiveness and mercy, that God's given me the grace for me to pass on. Lost sheep. Oh no, this is prayer in the workplace. Let's go there. Okay, so here we are out in Lincoln County. We were hauling 70,000 pounds of mulch out in a semi truck, and the truck was backing into the school driveway and got stuck in the ruts. And so I had a couple guys with me, and this was up a holler, and the truck blocked the road. So Kyle gets in my truck and puts it in four-wheel drive, and we'd rented a little Bobcat to spread the mulch and had it in front of it. And so we have the picture that the Bobcat pulling the truck, and the truck in four-wheel drive, and the driver in the truck, and the truck's tires were just spinning, and it was just sliding across the road like this. And the truck tire was spinning. The holler was blocked. People were trying to get out, so there's just a line of cars. This went on for about an hour, and it was bad. There's no way you could have got a tow truck in there to pull that guy out. So I went back down and told the guys, I said, "We need a miracle. Let's pray." So we prayed together that day. It was Kyle and Sean. So then a fella comes out in a Denali, one of those big trucks with double axle, big wheels on the back, and I think it was a Chevy. And he hooked a chain to it in front of the truck, and truck came out of the rut and on through the day. So I'm thankful for the prayer and seeing that answered prayer in the workplace. Some days when we know we have something difficult, I'd gather the fellows in and say, this wasn't us, this was God that finished this project. So now let's go to the next slide, wall sheet. So this is a playground that we did out of town. I sent a couple fellows out to build a playground and gave them a per diem money for 3 or 4 days. And little did I know that they relapsed on the job. And this playground didn't finish up too well. It got done and the customer called and said, it's crooked. They had it inspected and third party came in and inspected it and said, you're going to have to take it out. So they came back and the next job, I didn't know it, but one of them was on the job site and I went over, he was working on his truck and battery wouldn't work, wouldn't start. My truck was sitting there. He had the keys to my company truck, so he took the battery out of my truck and put it in his truck. I don't ever know what happened to the keys, but I come back and no battery, no keys. So I had to have the truck towed over to Glockner to get new keys made and new battery. I never saw him again. I don't know what happened to him to this day. The other fella, he had keys to my building. He came in and helped himself to a computer out of the church upstairs, and then he cleaned out my desk drawer of credit cards and took some bank checks, and he wreaked havoc on my financial livelihood for a month. We're still kind of dealing with it, aren't we, Laura? Yes. And the whole time, the police report, you know, they knew who he was because the computer had a tracker on it. And so the church upstairs filed the police report. And the people I told about, they said, you need to press charges. But I'm texting him back and forth and talking to him. And I'm like, dude, you got to get back in recovery. You got to surrender and get some help. Because, you know, I know being in jail is not going to help him, but being in recovery in a group setting around some guys would. So I kept on, and then I realized about a week later he stole a gun out of my desk. And he admitted it. I'm still texting him, you know, did you take my gun? Yeah, but I can't. Just bring it in. Just come in. Come in and see me. He never would. So everyone's like, man, you got to tell him about the gun. So after a couple of weeks, I finally added that to the police report that my gun and credit cards were stolen and checks. And so I prayed for him, and he told me he'd been to church and he was praying. And then it was this girl, blame it on the woman, it was a girl. He was staying with, he ended up beating her up, and next thing I know, he's in Western Regional Jail, where he's probably sitting today. But I realized that jail and fellas in recovery doesn't help them. I'd rather see them in a community, in a job. These guys, they just want to work. They want a job. They need help. There just needs to be more opportunities for people like that, so we can, you know, move them, help them, push them through. So how did I come to this? Well, let's look at Jeremiah 51:20. Is that all I get? I don't get the full video. Yeah, yeah.
I know. Yeah, I think. Mike, come on, Mike gets in charge. Oh, that's a kill shot there. Yeah, boys. What do you got?
Thou art my battle and the weapons of war. For these I will break in pieces all the nations and will win and destroy kingdoms. The caption of this says, let us bury the hatchet and not look back. Let us move forward in strength with partners. As we know, iron sharpens iron. Well, these guys in my D groups and from Man Camp, that's what they've done with me. They've taken that lump of clay and they've pumped it and spun it. But I'm still a work in progress, like most of us. I greatly love the ministry that I've been involved with. You know, it used to be I was in business for the money and the profit, and that was very important to me, but I really could care less now about the money. I'm about the jobs and the people. I had a pretty substantial loss last year. I don't really care because what I found out, I'm a sub S corporation. Maybe Phil knows that the bigger my loss, the bigger my tax refund for some reason. I feel like I'm using the business to get rewarded. We can push the numbers so that even though the business is in the hole, I get a friggin' bonus every spring. It just doesn't make sense. So I want to end this with a story that I heard about a little girl walking on the beach. A tide came in and all these fish were laying on the beach and they hadn't died yet. They were just flopping there on the ocean. So she's walking down the beach and she's picking them up and throwing them back in the ocean. And this old man is like watching her going, what are you doing? There's hundreds and maybe 1,000 fish laying on the beach. And she says, well, I'm saving them. I'm throwing them back in. She said, well, why do you want to do that? She says, because. He said, it won't matter. It's not going to matter. There's hundreds of them. They're going to die. So she picks one up and throws it back in and says, not this one. And then she goes to another fish and picks it up and throws it in and said, not this one. So my goal for the rest of my life is just to save just one. Then I'll know it won't end with me. Lord, I thank you for the opportunity to share my life, my story. I ask you to be with the community of people in recovery, the hundreds of men that need jobs, that need your grace and love, that need an opportunity to work, to come to you, to have fulfillment. Lord, we ask you to bless our recovery community, the leaders, of the houses. Bring us more people to counsel like Jim and Stephen. I'm thankful for all the D group members that have poured into me. Especially Phil, who changed my life and made me a disciple. Lord, I just ask you to give me opportunities to continue to do your work. Now I'm going to end with one of my favorite Catholic songs. I heard Todd playing Holy, Holy, Holy earlier. And that's a song we used to sing in church. And I'm going to give you just a few tunes of my favorite story or my favorite song. Thank you.